So now we're going to move on to nutrition questions. First question for nutrition is A. Gilson 1204 asks, how did your calories and macros during prep compare to non-prep calories and macros? Obviously my macros were a little bit lower during prep, but they were never all that extreme. I would say that when I started out my 20-week journey, my first few weeks, my macros were actually pretty high. I was consuming over 1,500 calories. And keep in mind, I'm only 5'2", and when I started out, I was 116 pounds, and I had a 26-inch waist. So I started out at over 1,500 calories, which is typically considered on the high end of dieting calories for someone my size. Prior to that, I was consuming, I don't know, I'd say around 1,700, 1,800 a day, approximately. So it was a little bit of a cut, but nothing too drastic. Over the 20 weeks, we really didn't drop my macros all that much. We kept them relatively high, but I was very consistent with my dietary adherence. Goders48 asks, thoughts on artificial sweeteners? Did you use them? If so, which kind? I did. Well, actually, I use stevia. And the brand that I like is New Naturals Stevia, and I've been using that one for I think 3 or 4 years. I get the same one all the time from Amazon.com because they're reliable, and I love the taste. They don't have a really bitter aftertaste. So I did not count the macros from that because I only use a tiny bit of it in my coffee every morning, and it really is very negligible. As far as other sweeteners like Splenda, for example, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, each packet has 4 calories. I think if you are consuming buckets and buckets of it, then you should definitely, okay, you probably shouldn't be eating that much, and 2, you should definitely be counting it. But if you're only having 2-3 packets a day, then I don't know that it's worth counting, because you know what, as long as you're consistent, then it'll all work out. Alexandra Butler asked, did you use any type of appetite suppressant while dieting? No, I did not. I didn't feel a need to, and I did not want to rely on extra supplements if I knew that I could be fine without it. And to be honest, was I hungry? Sure, sometimes I was hungry because obviously I am at a caloric deficit, and hunger is a normal part of the dieting process, but it never was terrible. It was never terrible, and I was staying busy with work and with taking care of my dogs and with planning my wedding. My mind was really consumed with other responsibilities, so I didn't really have time to focus so much on the sensation of being hungry. So I never felt the need for an appetite suppressant, and honestly never even considered it. Patty Pops asks, how much of a deficit were you at? Macros before prep and macros during for yourself. Okay, so I don't remember my exact macros from when I started. My starting calories were over 1,500 a day. Before I actually go on, I do want to say that as far as macros, I know I get a lot of questions people asking me like, what are your macros and what are you doing? And I have no problem telling you what my macros are, but I do want to say that just because I tell you what my macros are doesn't mean that you should copy my macros, because my numbers were custom calculated for me and my individual needs. Based on my age, my gender, my activity level, my dieting history, my health history, all these things. So your numbers are going to be very different for yourself. With that said, I started out at over 1,500 calories, and my end of prep macros were actually 1,200 calories for my last, I'd say, 6 to 8 weeks into my prep. And keep in mind, this is over 20 weeks. And I started at 116 pounds, 26-inch waist, and I ended at 105 pounds with a 23.5-inch waist. And my calories only dropped around 300 calories per day. That was really it. So not that much. If you want to know more about the specifics of my macros, and if you even want to see exactly what I ate every single day, you should check out the iPhone app called My Macros Plus, or you can go to getmymacros.com, and I'll include a link down below for that, and you can find me. My username is SoHeFit, and I pretty much use that app to track everything that I ate all throughout my prep. So if you're curious at all about my macros and how my macros changed over time and what exactly I ate, you should definitely go check that out. Even for you, I would recommend it if you're looking for a reliable, user-friendly app that allows you to track your macros and custom set your goals. You should check it out. It was made by my buddy Jason, and he is actually a natural pro bodybuilder, so he understands from a bodybuilding standpoint what users want to see in an app, and he implemented all those things. So it's a really great app. Go check it out. K-Walk2 asks, did you cut water or sodium for the show? No, not really. Did not cut water. If you ate out at a restaurant during prep, how did you calculate your macros correctly? Okay, so most of you guys know that I'm very big on quality of life and doing things that you enjoy. Obviously, when you're on a contest prep, if you're prepping for a show, things are maybe a little bit different because even the smallest of deviations in macro adherence can really affect your progress. And if you're on a tight timeline, you don't really have that wiggle room to say, oh, well, I was a little off today, oh well. So I definitely had to be much more consistent and much more adherent to my macros than maybe I typically would have been. Maybe most of the time I'd say like 85 to 90% on with my macros. If let's say if I were to just lose fat without a deadline just for the sake of losing fat, then I maybe wouldn't worry so much about eating out. But knowing that I had November 8th as a deadline definitely made me much more aware of how much and what I was eating. So with restaurants, I really tried to time out my social events so that they would fall on a Saturday, which for me was my refeed day, my high carb day. And that was the day I gave myself a little bit more flexibility in terms of eyeballing foods and fitting in foods that maybe taste great but are very macro heavy or calorie heavy and wouldn't typically fit into my normal macro fat loss day. So I would try to schedule it during a Saturday. Otherwise, if it was during the week, then I would definitely opt for a leaner, like a fish dish or a chicken salad or whatever it may be. But I still tried to make it taste good, right? I didn't want to say, oh, I'm just gonna get a chicken breast with dry lettuce, no croutons, and nothing fun, and also just water because I'm on a diet and this is miserable. I did not want to do any of that. If I could, I would try my hardest to plan ahead and maybe afford a handful of chips or some french fries into my diet. Yes, even while I was prepping, and I just made it work. But really, I was careful not to go out to eat more than twice a week. If I did, I tried to find a macro-friendly restaurant or a macro-friendly meal. But more than that, I just didn't really sweat it too much. I didn't worry about it too much. Shelton Holmes asks, is there anything specific to watch for as you get into the lower body fat percentages? It seems like people are always saying watch sodium or water. No, just honestly, just be consistent. I will say that when you're lean, getting even leaner tends to be much more difficult than going from a higher body fat to lean. For example, if maybe you had 25 to 20% may not be so difficult and you have a good deal of wiggle room to not be completely on point with your macros all the time. But when you're going from, let's say, 20% to 15%, then that's going to be a lot harder because you're on lower macros and your body is fighting you that much harder to keep the fat that you have on your body. So I would say just be very consistent with your adherence to your macros. And to me, that means plus or minus 5 grams of each macronutrient. So protein, carbs, and fats, plus or minus 5. And that, to me, would be considered on plan. Happy Healthy Lauren asks, how do you track macros when out at mom and pop's places where there are no calories, protein, carb, fat posted, or nowhere to be found? Lauren, I covered this in my previous video. You should check out how to track macros when eating out. As far as a contest prep perspective, something like this, eating out at a grandma's house or your parents' house where you can't really track the macros. On a contest prep, you can't really... these are things you're going to have to cut out temporarily. I would either have a talk with your family and try to get them to understand that, you have to eat in a certain type of way, or at least know the nutrition facts of what you're eating because you have this goal that you're working toward. If they're unable to accommodate you, then maybe, they can't accommodate you. That's, oh well. But again, it's only temporary, and once the show's over, you'll be able to go back and enjoy your meal. So check out my video, how to track macros when eating out. Buff Girl 85 asks, what did you eat or drink pre-workout for maximum fat loss? Also, did you like being slimmer than usual? So 2 questions. First one, what did I eat or drink pre-workout? Nothing. I did not do anything special. I ate whatever I was going to eat. I relied primarily on whole foods whenever I could. Things like rice and chicken and butter. Is that considered a whole food? I don't know, but I love butter. I ate it every day. Did not take any kind of pre-workout supplement. Did not take a fat burner. Nothing. It was just relying on basic consistency. I had nothing, no sparkly celebrating confetti stuff, nothing secret, no secret a formula, no secret supplements, nothing like that. It was just plain old train hard, lift heavy, be consistent with your macros, sleep enough, and manage my stress levels and think long term. That was really it. Did you like being slimmer than usual? This is a very interesting question. So definitely my clothes were fitting differently, and I did end up the last month or so having to buy new clothes because my jeans and everything were not fitting me properly. But did I like being slimmer more than usual? No, it did not make me happier, and I think that is a huge misconception that a lot of people have. People think that just if you can get lean or if you can become a size 0 or a size 2, then you'll finally be happy. Let me tell you, I am no happier now than I was 15 pounds ago. I'm really not. But I think that there is a lot that can be learned through the process of fat loss and the process of committing to this kind of a journey where you learn the ins and outs of how to stick to your diet on a consistent basis and how to account for life happenings, how to go out with your friends and still be on plan, all these things. Those were really great, but I would not say that I like being slimmer. No, definitely not. Motivate and Be Fit asks, what was your favorite meal during prep? Well, actually, this is funny because ever since I started prepping 20 weeks ago in June, I have either almost always had a quesadilla homemade or grilled cheese also homemade for breakfast as my carbs and fats, and of course I'd have a side of protein. So it was definitely grilled cheese or quesadillas. As you can tell, I love cheese. There was no way I was going to not eat them. So I was very big on honoring my personal preferences, even as I was prepping for the bikini show. Cream in my coffee, grilled cheese, and maybe here and there I'd have a bowl of sugary cereal after I worked out. But again, I definitely did not make that the bane of my diet. I relied primarily, I'd say 85% of the time, I relied on whole foods, and I got in plenty of veggies and plenty of water. Diana asks, I've heard so much about carb and water depletion during peak week. Do you subscribe to this? No, I do not believe in cutting out your water. I do not believe in cutting out sodium. No. Beatrix Limos asks, may we have an example of your eating plan of a typical day when prepped? Did you cut out all cheat foods? For how long did you prep? So again, 20 weeks was my prep. Did you cut out all cheat foods? No, I did not, because I don't use the term cheap foods. I don't do cheap meals, and there's an article that I wrote a few months back on why I no longer do cheat meals, and that's for me a very mental thing, and you can go read the article if you want to learn more about that. Example of an eating plan, again, my macros plus, you can find me, username SoheFit, and you can see everything that I ate over the past 20 weeks. Elena Cardamone, what were the lowest calories you consumed within your prep? The lowest my calories dropped was down to 1,200. That was, I would say, the last 6 to 8 weeks of my prep. And that was just on an off day, so any day that I was not exercising at all, those were my calories. Days that I did have training or intervals, I was consuming 1,260 calories a day, which again, and keep in mind that I was at 105 on stage, so that's about 12 times body weight for calories, and that's pretty good for dieting calories. They never really dropped that low at all. I will say that I'm almost positive that it's because my training intensity and my volume stayed pretty high, and that's why I was able to get away with eating a little bit more than I normally would have. Tina asks, elimination of certain foods like chocolate during peak week? No, there's no need for that. I ate bagels. I ate Panera Bread Cinnamon Crunch Bagel with butter during my peak week.